guys, so I think we're on day 17 now, so go me. Weight is definitely increasing, which is something I'm gonna have to come to terms with. Not easy, but c'est la vie. Today's rant is somewhat inspired by a conversation I was having with my roommate last night. I was thinking about this whole idea of OCD, anxiety, depression, obviously all interrelated with all of these various things, and then you can go into autism, bipolar, whatever. But if you really look at it, this is based off a conversation we'd actually had before. A lot of these are just traits of my personality type. I'm an INTJ, she's an ISFJ, I think. Are we just saying that all people with this personality type are just have these mental illness diagnoses? I think the reframe of just the different MBTI types is actually much more accurate, and there's nothing wrong with it that needs to be sort of retrained. I don't know why we have this whole idea in society and that you need to medicate yourself out of it. Again, I think it's just about finding where you belong in society and understanding that yeah, as an INTJ, for instance, I'm going to always be very hard on myself. I'm going to always have high standards for myself and everyone else, and to a certain extent, life is not going to be this fun, enjoyable vacation that it seems to be for other people. But that's fine. That just means that I also really enjoy challenges, and I just need to find ones that are actually meaningful and worthwhile to myself and to society at large. I don't understand why it's also so, well, I actually do understand why it's so important to certain personality types to pathologize someone like myself, and I find myself actually doing this with her because I think at one point I was in my room and I started cursing because actually she knocked over my drawers and she hadn't told me about it, and then when I discovered the evidence and figured out what had happened, I said some profanity in my room privately, not at her, but she overheard it and she got very upset, and she didn't also communicate her upsetness with me. And following that, I found that I had to essentially pathologize myself in front of her because she told me that she took that very personally, the fact that I had said those words. And I was it's not something I feel I'm mad at you about. It's just a thing that happened that upset me. I had my reaction, we can just move on. But then because I understand so much about how ISFJ types work, and not that they have the same understanding for how I work, which is a whole separate issue, I knew that I had to sort of now run around and act like I was this crazy person, and don't worry, it's okay, you're all normal, and I'm just an issue. But I don't think that's actually the case. It's just, I find that sort of acting as if that is the case is sort of the optimal way of going about this from a bigger picture standpoint. And so it's sometimes hard to be the person who sort of can step back and see the bigger picture of how these dynamics unfold and what the best role is to play within a given situation to make the other person feel at ease, which feels so dishonest to me in a certain way, but I know that that's the cultural norm in America. And that's another thing we were actually talking about, how INTJ personality traits in Europe or in Germany specifically, and somewhat in England, that's just called being normal, and the whole culture of white lies and just trying to constantly appease everyone and make people feel comfortable even at the expense of being honest and authentic, that's considered dishonest there. And yeah, people are much more forthright and outspoken about boundaries and just communicative and honest. I kind of really don't appreciate the dishonesty in America, actually, and the extent to which that's the norm. And then if you choose not to be dishonest, you choose to be honest, and pretty direct, that's considered weird and even pathologized. That's just kind of crazy to me. Anyway, that was today's rant. Take care, guys.